Hey guys, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to talk about the skills that are the most useful to get started in web development and probably mobile development as well, in terms of finding work as quickly as you can. So these are the most marketable skills that you can start out with as a beginner. And by beginner, I mean less than 1 year of experience. That it seems like every company wants to a certain extent or another. So pretty much all of my clients in the past 5 years have wanted some or if not all of the following on their products. So it would be good, excuse me, if you could start on this list of things to work on. So number one, probably the most obvious, is user sign up and login, regular profile management. So if you can do user sign up, login, make sure you include all the best practices there. So password encryption, hashing, and all that stuff. Um, and session management, how to manage a session, or using JSON Web Tokens if you want to go that route. How to deal with all that, how to manage all that, how to handle sensitive information like maybe credit card information, things like that. So that's a pretty important thing to know how to do. You can roll out your own authentication mechanisms, way of doing it. That's pretty much what I do most of the time. Or you can use Passport. If you're using Node, you can use the Passport NPM, and that's pretty useful. So let me Passport. If you just do Passport Node, that's not it. This is pretty much the industry standard for the authentication library as far as Node goes. So this is probably a good thing to use if you want to defer to a library for this. So yeah, that's number one. So that's kind of one of the more obvious ones. Um, excuse me. Something else that just about all my clients wanted, uh, yeah, just about all of them. I can't think of anyone who didn't want this. Is some sort of photo or video upload. So you want to make sure you can upload videos or photos more importantly than videos, to a backend of some sort, to a CDN, and then they can be served on the actual app itself. So it's good to know how to do that. So the libraries I use for that in React are React Dropzone. This is essentially the file selector in a React component. What else do I use? I use SuperAgent to actually call the upload. So I actually conduct the actual upload using the SuperAgent module. You can use any HTTP request module for this, like Axios or Request or whatever. But then that's kind of the easy part, is the handling everything client side. Then you got to worry about where do you actually store that, right? Where do you actually store the data for those images? And there are a handful of services out there that'll do this for you. One of the more beginner level ones that's good to use is Cloudinary. So Cloudinary is good because it's easy to integrate. It's pretty versatile. So it can handle basically any file type. You can handle videos, PDFs, like a miscellaneous category if you want to upload zip files, non-image related things. But also, what's good about Cloudinary is that it can do manipulation for you. So if you have an image that's really really big, like 5,000 pixels by 4,000 pixels, it might be like 10 megabytes in size. You don't want to transfer that if you only need a thumbnail. And so what you want to do is have some way of dynamically processing that. And that's typically one of the more challenging problems with image hosting in general, is how do you manage that exact scenario. If you're a beginner, it's just not something you want to get into early on. It's more of an advanced issue to tackle, and even still at the advanced level, the best practices there are changing. Like right now, I would say more and more of the best practices is becoming using what's called AWS Lambda to do image processing on the upload. and that's not a beginner thing to be using. So Cloudinary is a good solution. It's a good thing to use just when you're starting out, and it'll just take care of the image manipulations for you. And it's free when you're first starting out, and then it costs more money as you use more and more of the service. So it's pretty good to get started. So yeah, image uploading and sometimes video uploading, any kind of asset management, hosting and whatnot. What you do not want to do is host those images and video assets and whatever on your server. You don't want that. You want to offload it to a service like Cloudinary, um, or go right to Amazon S3, the S3 bucket for that, and that would be a better way to handle that. But even S3, I wouldn't recommend right away. If you're just starting out, it takes a little bit to get it working. If you're new to this, whereas Cloudinary is sort of like plug and go. You just basically plug in API keys and you're off and running. S3 has some quirks to it that you have to understand how to work with. To give you a good example, you don't really want to serve your S3 assets directly from the bucket. They're called buckets. They're basically just storage units, online storage units. You don't want to really serve your assets directly from an S3 bucket, excuse me, because that bucket is running on a single instance in a single location in the world, probably somewhere in the United States, but your user might not be anywhere near that location. So right now I run my S3 buckets in the USA East 1 region, which I think is in Northern Virginia. That's the data center. I'm pretty sure that's where it is. But if I have users in California, they're getting those resources from the USA East 1 region. So what I did, what the best practice is to set up what's called a CDN, and where they take the assets, the static assets, and they propagate it throughout servers throughout the world, and those are called edge locations. So a visitor in California. So my website, I get a lot of visitors in like China, India, places like that, far away. So the assets that they receive, my videos, or well, that's YouTube, but the images and whatnot, those are coming from a server closer to their physical location rather than Northern Virginia, and that's set up through a CDN. And the most industry biggest ones are Cloudflare and CloudFront. Cloudflare is the Amazon solution. CloudFront is just a third-party company. However, Cloudinary sort of like protects you from all that. You don't have to worry about all that. You can just focus on the software side without worrying about all that DevOps stuff and infrastructure setup. So it's good to know what it is, how it works underneath the hood, because if you want to keep on moving along, you're gonna want to end up doing these things anyway. But for now, you just want to get something up and working, and to show it to your client or to your boss or to your company. So yeah, image uploading, video uploading, very important. It comes up every time. Another one, message sending. So sending and receiving messages, like private messages, like on Twitter, a direct message, or like a message on LinkedIn. Most of my clients wanted that. I would say 75%. And two ways you can do that. You can just manage it like a regular CRUD operation, like a regular resource on your back end, and which I did a lot. Just call it message, and it has a recipient and a sender and all that stuff and all that good stuff. Or you can hook it up to a sort of a live, like a real-time solution like Firebase, which I'm doing more and more now because I just find it easier to handle messaging that way, with the added benefit that if a message is sent or received while either party is reading the message, they can get the notification right away. It's real time. So it's a better user experience anyway. So it's an all-around win. So messaging is good to know how to do. I would recommend setting up a messaging system in your next project just for the exercise, because you're going to find there are weird considerations that are not immediately obvious, like when a message is opened, um, how do you track that? How do you keep track of which messages are new? So when you see that you have 4 unread messages, how are you going to handle that from a programming standpoint? All right, so that's a tricky one. Um, if you're new to this, um, how are you going to handle message threads? That's another one. So what if there are 5 messages in a thread, and then a user starts a new thread, right? How do you handle that? And these are tricky challenges. I wouldn't say they're easy, especially for a beginner, but it's something you want to have some background on, something that you want to at least be able to discuss to your client or your boss or your company, so that they know that you've at least dealt with it on some level. That's important because it comes up a lot. Um, what else? Google Maps, I've been getting more and more a lot in terms of requests. Everyone seems to want Google Maps. Not everyone, but a high percentage, over half. So it's not as much as like messaging, but over half. So it's good to know how to install Google Maps in your projects, and within Google Maps, you're going to want the ability to drop pins to show locations, annotate those pins. When a user clicks on a pin, it should pop up with some information. You want to be able to handle all that. So Google Maps is definitely something that comes up a lot. And within the context of React, I use React Google Maps. This is the one I use a lot. I use all the time in my React projects. Um, Looks like he hasn't maintained it in a while. It's been a few months, so we'll see what happens with this. If he just stops supporting it, I'll fork it and keep it up on my own. But yeah, this is pretty good. It's basically just a component wrapper around the Google Maps APIs, and it's easy to understand. It's easy to integrate if you've had a lot of React experience, and it works pretty well. It's smooth. So I would recommend just making one project just for the sake of Google Maps and showing how you can load pins and annotate those pins. Um, if you can make a project that incorporates some or all of what I'm discussing right here, then you have something that's worth showing. I wouldn't recommend making one project that incorporates everything. The reason is because A, it's only one project, but B, if you're going to incorporate everything, or try to, messaging, user sign up, image upload, Google Maps, you're gonna be biting off more than you can chew. It might take you a long time, a really long time, like 3 months, and for one portfolio project, yeah, that's a lot of time invested. What you want to do is sort of spit out a bunch of short projects, like 1 month or less, and try to build up a portfolio of maybe 3, 4, or 5 projects that across all 5 they incorporate everything I'm discussing right here. So maybe you want to do one project with Google Maps and like messaging, and another one with image uploading and Google Maps. Like try to mix and match. That would be a good way to showcase these skills. Another one is it's kind of related to messaging, but it's live chat, actual live chat, and that's all Firebase or Socket.io. You want to use either one of those. The difference is Socket.io is a library, so you don't need to like sign up for anything. You can just install the library. It's pretty easy to use. It's JavaScript, um, and Firebase is the service that abstracts away all the WebSocket stuff for you and makes it very easy to set up live interaction. So that's good to know how to do, because you see all these websites now that they have like a live chat module everywhere, and uh, more and more companies now want that, right? So like this right here, you see that? This guy's actually a friend of mine, but this is a live chat module, probably done using Socket.io or Firebase. So because it's so easy to implement, you're seeing all these like companies and services and sort of SDKs pop up where you can just do that. So you want to you want to make sure you can showcase that skill as well. These are all things I think a beginner should be able to do. By beginner, I mean, maybe like 1 year, up to 1 year of like self-study, or, you've done a lot of exploration and some Node and JavaScript and React for upwards of a year. If that's the case, and these are all things, everything I'm pointing out, I think is doable if you've, really focused your energy. Moving on. It's not so much programming, but it will tremendously help if you need some design or graphical capability. Most programmers just hate design, and for good reason. It just, programming is so linear in the way that, you do something, it works, mission accomplished, right? Like, on to the next thing. It's so, just step by step. Design isn't so much like that. It's kind of like, I've been working on this design for 3 hours. Looks like shit. I'm gonna have to scrap and start anew, try something else. I mean, that happens in programming too, but not because like it works and you just decide you don't like it. Normally when you get stuck in programming, it's because you're stuck. Like, you can't get it to work, that's the problem. I can't get it to work. That happens a lot, obviously. In design, it's more like, I just made this, spent 5 hours making it, and now I decided I don't like it. It looks like shit, or nobody else likes it, or whatever. And so it's very like, it's hard to, tracking your progress is a lot more nebulous. Like, you don't necessarily, just because you worked 5 hours doesn't mean you did 5 hours worth of work, is the best way I can put it. That's probably why programmers hate design. From what I've gathered, I have no like statistics to back this up. From the programmers I know, they're not big design fans. So for that reason, if you can do some design, you stand apart from programmers, especially at the beginner level. So I'm talking about everything from a beginner standpoint. This is all for beginners. So, I'm not a design expert, but I did design this logo. Not that there's nothing special about this, but I designed all this. I designed the UI. I did use a theme. I think that's fairly obvious, but I designed the UI, the layout. I designed, the theme didn't come with these blocks, or they did. They just didn't quite look like this. Like, I added this HR. These were round icons. I made them square. I put the border there. So little things like that. I know it's not a lot, but you want to have that design capability. Or like a good example is this right here, this banner image. It's from Unsplash, so you definitely want to know this, unsplash.com. Free, high resolution, sort of artistic images. Very good place to start to get some images. Just do a search for whatever category you want, right? And so I found this image on Unsplash. However, I did this gradient right here. The reason I did that is because this white text didn't show up very well against the image originally. So either I find a new image, or I can make a slight adjustment to the image, which will create better contrast right here. So this is not programming at all. This is just basically design. Like, you have to have some design intuition, to be able to see that, and then to be able to make that change. So here, to make that change, I use Pixelmator. I think it's like $25 on the Mac store. And I just throw a gradient on top, and that's it. and that'll take care of that, right? The reason this is helpful is because, first of all, if you can just articulate that to your client, like you want to have a background image with some dark gradient on top to create contrast, it shows that you've done this a lot. It shows that you have a lot of experience, that you give this a lot of thought. You are truly a professional when you are doing this. Like, you're covering all your angles. That's number one. Number two, if you can really affect those changes, like if you can make those adjustments, you're saving everyone time. Because normally what happens, and I've been stuck in this situation many times too, is when you'll go back and forth with whoever the designer on the startup team is. He might not even be in the office. He might be living in Europe, right? So he's in a different time zone. You send him the image saying, hey, we need a slight gradient on this. He'll send it back to you in the wrong size, and then you have to wait again to get the image back in the right size. all the meanwhile, like this could take days. This is not an exaggeration. Like this is, I've been in situations where this silliness is taking days. Um, all the meanwhile, you kind of explaining to the founder, like, look, I can just do this now. Like, it'll be done in 48 seconds. Just let me do this now. And I'm thinking about one case in particular where the founder was like, no, 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 we're paying this guy in Europe a lot of money. I want to use him as our service for this. But I'm like, look, we're just resizing an image. Like, that's all we're doing. We're just resizing an image. Like, I can do this now. Most founders actually appreciate that. They're like, oh, this will save a lot of time. And so you're paying for yourself kind of inefficiency. Um, you're keeping the ball moving with these little things, just getting them out of the way. Um, if you don't do that, these little things add up, and next thing you know, there's a million small things. It's like death by a million paper cuts. It's just you can't get through everything, and the projects, because it starts to slow down, everything gets unwieldy. So you wanna just have a quick solution. Just let me scale it down. The designer may have sent this image over as like an 8,000 pixel by 6,000 pixel image. That's just far too big. For reference. This across is like maybe 1,200 pixels. Um, so yeah, you'll save some time that way, and you'll show to your company or your client that you are a solution to these problems. You add efficiency to this process, and that you've given this a lot of thought. Right? So you want to really demonstrate that as much as you can. So any kind of design skill, you don't have to be an expert. I'm not an expert. But having some design intuition goes a long way. This is definitely a case where the sum is greater than the parts. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Being a decent programmer and a decent designer combined makes you a very strong addition to any small team. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. Um, so yeah, those are what comes to mind right away. What comes to mind right away as far as skills you can work on today, like now, that'll really help your marketability right away. You'll get more benefit from working on those things and really sharpening those skills than you would something really really arcane like really like creating like a CSV file from like scraping a million websites and creating CSV files from the data off those sites. Like that's a good thing to know how to do. Like don't get me wrong, like that's actually pretty valuable, but um, like that's not gonna deliver immediate value to most of your early on clients, your beginner level clients. So what you want to do, this is more of a strategic advice, like more like how you want to sort of manage your early careers. You want to get those easy things in, those high level demanded skills like Google Maps, and use that to get your foot in the door, right? Get that first couple, either contracts if you're freelance like me, or get like a junior level developer job at maybe a dev shop. That dev shops hire junior devs all the time because they just need someone to do all the grunt work, and so you might want to start there, and then use these sort of combination of skills to get that first position, and then from there focus on like the more challenging things like machine learning or anything DevOps side, like setting up a Docker or container cluster and things like that, and hooking up the load balancer. Like that's hard stuff like that, and that pays very well too, and that's very high in demand at the higher levels. You're not going to start there because those guys have years of experience, like those DevOps guys and senior level devs, and that's a whole nother level of sort of bracket of developer. So unless you're just a genius, this isn't like, I'm not giving like 100% applicable advice. This isn't true for everybody. I'm talking about within 2 standard deviations of the norm, the mean. Roughly 95%, 95 to 97% of people you get your people who are just geniuses. That's different. Like, yeah, that they can do other stuff. I'm not one of those people, and chances are you aren't either. That's just statistically the likelihood. So, if you're like everyone else, then you want to find the best way to break in, which is focusing on the skills I just sort of laid out, getting your feet wet, and then start building up from there. Then start working on setting up the S3 bucket, hooking it up to a CDN, optimizing your asset pipeline, like that. That's all good stuff. It's all very important stuff. But your early on clients, your beginner level people won't even know what a CDN is. Don't worry about it. Just get it to work, and then take it from there. Okay. So I hope this helps. I'll put some notes in the folder in where I upload these videos, basically summarizing everything I just said. And yeah, if you have any other questions, anything you want to cover in these videos, want me to cover in these videos, you shoot me an email right here. Shoot me an email right here, and I'll do my best to get to it. Thanks.